All right. Hello everyone. Sorry for not posting a video last week. Sorry for the delay. Things have been crazy and hectic because I recently just moved out of my old house. Currently, I'm living in my father's apartment until eventually we move into the new house. So, in the meantime, here's my review on Rocky 3 from 1982. Rocky 3 is the third Rocky movie in the franchise. It was once again written and directed by Sylvester Stallone. Talia Sheri, Burt Young, Carl Weathers, and Burgess Meredith all reprised their roles from the first two films. And Mr. T plays Clubber Lang. As you all know, Mr. T would go on to star in the hit TV series The A-Team, an 80s action TV show. Rocky 3 was released on May 28, 1982. The film grossed $270 million at the box office, received by critics and audiences at the time of its release, but considered mixed to average. At this point in time, the Rocky series had gone a little bit comedic and had some weird moments at this point in the series. Unlike the first two Rocky movies being very dramatic. But even still, there were still some dramatic moments in the later sequels. Of all the Rocky sequels, this one is my favorite of the series. I think it's the best Rocky sequel ever. After Rocky's successful defeat against Apollo Creed for the heavyweight champion, Rocky has become a successful boxer and a star. Lang, a loud, big mouth, mean jerk, wants a title shot with Rocky Balboa to prove a point that he's not the greatest heavyweight championship of all and one of the best fighters ever. Clubber Lang easily defeats Rocky and becomes the new heavyweight champion. After Rocky losing to Clubber Lang, his trainer Mickey dies, and Rocky retires. Apollo Creed offers to train Rocky for a rematch with Clubber Lang because Apollo Creed believes in Rocky that he can defeat Clubber Lang. And also how that he had to get the Eye of the Tiger and his confidence back in order to beat Clubber Lang. Speaking of the Eye of the Tiger, the song Eye of the Tiger by Survivor is one of my favorite songs of all time. If not for Rocky 3, this song would not be popular because of this. About Rocky 3 that it shows that even fame and success does have its side effects. Like how Rocky easily defeated opponents that were not too hard and too tough to beat. Whereas going up against Clubber Lang is a mean fighting machine that is undefeated. This is a low point for Rocky in his life. After losing Mickey and Clubber Lang to the fight, Rocky has a hard time gaining his confidence back and thinking that he was not good enough being a fighter, heavyweight champion. After all, Mickey tells him that the last fights were just easy, whereas Clubber Lang was undefeated and a tough component. Hard time gaining his confidence back and has to learn to rise again in order to defeat Clubber Lang. My favorite thing about Rocky 3 is seeing Apollo Creed train Rocky. After being the enemy in the last two movies, Apollo Creed trains Rocky because he believed that he could defeat Clubber Lang because of what happened in the last movie when Creed lost to Rocky. It shows how your worst enemy in life becomes your best friend. I also just love seeing how this film shows a lighter and heartwarming side to Apollo Creed that feels so good. He's a mean, tough, big mouth, jerk, over the top, narcissistic, and a crazy nut job. You really want to see Rocky beat the heck out of him. Rocky and fool yourself in a narcissistic is not a good thing. Seeing Mickey die was really sad. It made me cry as a kid when I first saw this. Even though Mickey was hard and tough on Rocky, but deep down he loved and respected and cared about Rocky and protected Rocky like he was his own son. We see at this point how Adrian has grown in this series. She went from a shy girl to confident, tough, and strong. She motivates Rocky not to quit and get his confidence back, and that he can defeat Clubber Lang, and that there's nothing wrong with a little fear, that you can either choose to face your fears or hide from it. Paulie is jealous of Rocky's success. This is an example showing how that comparing yourself to others is a bad thing. But it's funny how, with Paulie being so jealous of Rocky that he tries to punch him. After when he tries to punch him, he asks Rocky, "Can I have a job?" And Rocky forgives him so easily after that. Kind of shows how Rocky is easily to forgive. The strangest and weirdest things at this point in the series, and for no particular reason that has nothing to do with the plot and the story, is where Rocky fights Thunderclips, played by real-life wrestler Hulk Hogan. Boxing versus wrestler. This makes, like, no sense whatsoever. I mean, it's kind of, like, funny, but yet it's so, like, brutal at the same time, seeing Rocky get his butt kicked by a wrestler. Let me tell you, if I was a wrestler, I would not do something like this. I could either lose, or worse, even die from this. Fighting the wrestler, it's never mentioned again throughout the entire film because it has nothing to do with the plot or the story. I feel like this is a scene they could have cut out of the film, but who really knows like why they had to put this in the movie for whatever particular reason. Clubber Lang the second time, compared to the first fight against him, he lost easily. After Creed's training, which paid off, in this fight, Rocky has more stamina and cardiovascular endurance. The last fight scene when Rocky fights Clubber Lang, even though I know what happens and I know that he wins against him, but every time I watch it, it just gets better and better for me. I just get like more excited and jazzed up when Rocky defeats Clubber Lang. The boxing scene of the series. Fictional movies, but to me, for some reason, these fight scenes in the Rocky movies feel like realistic to me. It's also cool to see Apollo and Rocky win a heavyweight title together. It shows if you can't beat them, join them. My facts on Rocky 3. Carl's his favorite of the series, which I totally agree with. First film. I saw this at the premiere. She walked out storming and screaming, being mad at Mr. T for the way the character Clubber Lang talks to Adrian, saying, "I didn't raise my boy like that." Morgan Freeman auditioned for the role of Clubber Lang's trainer. Sylvester Stallone revealed that when he made this film that he had 2.8% body fat. Ranks this 9 out of 10 for the Rocky series. It was also the first time where Mr. T said his famous catchphrase, "I petted the fool." Decided to go with Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. He originally wanted to use Another One Bites the Dust by Queen, but he couldn't get the rights to it, so we ended up using Eye of the Tiger by Survivor for the soundtrack of the movie. To do the fight scene between Rocky and Thunderclips. Around 12,000 actors auditioned for the role of Clubber Lang. Sylvester Stallone wanted this to be the last Rocky of the series and wanted to make it a trilogy and not an ongoing franchise. But after the success of Rocky 3, Stallone decided to keep the series going. Chuck Webner, he said that Stallone based the fight scene between Rocky and Thunderclips based on his fight scene with Andre the Giant. Fired from WWE for doing this movie. John G. Avildsen was asked to direct this film, but he turned it down. Carl Weathers and Mr. T did not get along during the making of this movie. That off said they had a lot of disputes before filming scenes together. Producers did not want to have Clubber Lang have a mohawk. Sylvester Stallone based Rocky 3 on real-life experiences. He based Rocky 3 on what he was going through at the time when he became famous and successful at the time.